Welcome back to the Texas Nurses Podcast. I'm Laura Kinchelow, your new Director of Nursing Practice and your host for today's episode. Today, we will be introducing you to the nurses who work at TNA. We've all joined the staff within the last year, and we are looking forward to making some momentum with TNA and seeing what is up and coming. So I'm excited that they've joined us today, and I look forward to introducing you to these leaders. So to get started, I want to jump in and just introduce our guests and we'll have you kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself. We have 3 nurses on our team, myself included, Dr. Serena Bumpus as CEO, Jamie Roney as Director of Professional Development, and myself, Laura Kinchelow, as Director of Practice. So let's learn a little bit more and let's just get started. How's everybody doing today?
Great. Thanks.
All right, so just a little bit before we jump in and launch into a deeper discussion, I want to take a few minutes just to introduce myself, share a little bit about my background, my journey to TNA, as well as the aspirations that we have for our Texas Nurses Podcast. So I come to TNA with a little over 12 years of nursing experience, and my clinical background is rather diverse, and I am proud to say that I am a med-surg nurse. So all of my clinical work has been in acute care, typically med-surg units such as renal, oncology, pulmonary, and most recently trauma. So I've served as a unit supervisor, unit manager, house supervisor, kind of just in a variety of settings from a small rural critical access hospital to a level 1 trauma center in Central Texas. I've been a nurse educator for a lot of my career, and I am very passionate about one thing, and that's I love nurses. I've had a few opportunities where I've been able to just love on nurses, and the best part of that is just the love that I have for education, leadership, and advocacy. And that's exactly what we do at TNA. And that's why I was driven to come to TNA, and I hope to continue and combine those skills so that we can support and empower Texas nurses. Texas Nurses Association combines all of these passions every day and in all the work that we do. And so I'm honored to serve alongside of my nursing colleagues in this capacity. One of our most important parts, or one of what I would say is an important part of an organization like TNA, is our engagement with Texas nurses. So when I got here, and since I've got here, I've just wanted to reach as many nurses as possible in Texas. And it's been such a rewarding and humbling experience already in this short time. And in this podcast, we really hope to achieve that engagement through communication, honest conversations, and truly just to engage and connect with people. While we provide many experiences for nurses to engage in other ways, we want to take it a step further and revitalize this podcast so we can talk with real nurses about real issues. And that's where our nursing team comes into play. That's where the 3 of us get to combine our passions, our experience, and our efforts to truly help support nurses in Texas. I think I've introduced enough about myself, a little bit about the podcast. So let's dive into the fun part and get to know our team and our guests on today's episode. So if you want to just let us know, let's dive in a little bit. Serena, do you want to get us started and tell us a little bit about your history with TNA and your current role?
Yes, I would love to. So, I've been a registered nurse for 21 years now. And when I graduated nursing school back in 2002, I got an associate's degree. And, when you graduate with an associate's degree, they don't really talk about the value of professional membership and professional organizations and, the value that it just brings overall to your career. And it wasn't until I went back to get my RN to BSN that I really was educated on, one, the Texas Nurses Association. I had zero clue that the organization even existed. And that, you know, the obligation that I had as a nurse to be a member of my professional organization. At the time, in my career, I was a staff nurse in a large tertiary care center, really looking to grow my career. I had strong aspirations to move into nursing leadership, and was very part of my shared governance system in my hospital, as well as I was the nurse educator in my unit. And so really, you know, was moving towards that leadership path. And so my professor at the time in my RN to BSN program, Dr. Myrna Armstrong, she told me, well, actually she told the class about all the great work that TNA was doing at the time and the reasons why we had what we had as nurses here in the state of Texas was because of the work that TNA was doing. And that if we wanted to have a voice in how we practice nursing in the state of Texas, then we needed to be members. And so, of course, you know, being very engaged in shared governance, I was all about my voice and making sure it was heard. And I didn't want anyone else telling me how I should practice. So I joined TNA and thinking, okay, I've done my part. And but little did I know that was the start of something really big for me. I didn't know that at the time, but never in my career did I ever think that I would be sitting in this position. It wasn't even on my radar. So I got a call a few weeks later asking if I would be the membership director for the local district, which is District 5 here in the Austin area. And that grew into being the president-elect for the district, eventually the president for the district. I had the opportunity at the time to be on various state level committees. And, you know, it exposed me to a lot of different people, a lot of different styles of leadership, and just really started opening doors for me in general and really fueled my passion for advocacy as a whole. As I moved into nurse manager positions and nurse director positions, you know, that was then my opportunity to take the words of wisdom that had been given to me by Dr. Armstrong and turn around and share those words of wisdom with my own teams as well. And, you know, get the staff that I got to work with to join the organization. And watch them flourish in that too. So, you know, I went on to get my doctorate. I started that journey back in 2017. And I was at a point in my career, I was a director of nursing in a large healthcare system here in the Austin area. And, you know, I was feeling really stuck in my career at the time. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I felt very, just very lost. And, you know, and part of your DNP journey is really in any terminal degree is you're trying to figure out how you're going to make your mark on the profession, because that work in your terminal degree carries forward with you, and that is something that you can work on fully throughout your career. And so I told my professor that I was like, I have zero desire to do a DNP project inside my organization. Let me just throw that out there and be clear. I said, I want to do something that's where I can make an impact on nursing. I'm feeling very lost right now, and I just need to find something that gives me a sense of purpose again, because I don't feel like I have purpose as a director of nursing in my organization. And so it just so happened that the TERCAP data from the Board of Nursing had just been released, and basically that was a very long pilot with the Board of Nursing where organizations came in together, and they were really looking at why nurses were referred to peer review and how organizations were managing that process. And so it originally the project was to look at why nurses were being referred to peer review for a lack of professionalism and advocacy, which was the second top reason why nurses were referred at the time. Which then grew into, oh my gosh, people don't understand the peer review process and they don't really know about the peer review process. And do nurse leaders understand that? Because even some of the nurse leaders I worked with at the time really didn't understand what their role was in that. So that really gave me an opportunity to work with TNA on a very different level, a very different capacity. And it little did I know, it was also setting me up to move into my next career opportunity. And so in 2019, I actually left that healthcare organization. And that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it led me to, at the time, become the director of practice for TNA. And so I did that position for, I was in that position for around 18 months. And it was at the height of COVID. So COVID had, little did we know that 3 months into that role as director of practice, COVID would hit. And it gave me the opportunity to really take a deep dive into what was happening with nurses in COVID. It's fueled my passion for advocacy. I could advocate for nurses so much more working for TNA than I could as a nurse leader in a hospital. I wasn't hitting a brick wall every time I tried to do it. And so it was truly a pivotal moment in my career. And it exposed me to people in situations that I would have never been exposed to otherwise. As things were starting to shift with COVID and settle down, a colleague of mine had reached out and said, I've got this great opportunity. You need to get back in the hospital. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And then I started to panic a little bit and think, oh, everything has changed with COVID, and I need to be relevant if I ever want to grow more in this advocacy thing. And so I ended up leaving TNA and taking that position. And it was very naive of me to think that so much had changed because of COVID. It didn't. It actually had gotten worse. We're still dealing with the same challenges. And, so I had a little bit of buyer's remorse to some degree. I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? Around 4 months later, Cindy had announced her retirement, and I was like crushed. I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I had a few people reach out to say, oh, you should apply. And I thought, no, that's just rude. I have only been gone for 4 months. I just need to continue to do what I'm doing and move on. And so again, just this really wasn't even in my line of sight because of the decision I had made to move on to a different organization and position. And it wasn't until I came back from Washington, D.C., because like you, Laura, I grew up as a med-surg nurse. I was an ortho trauma nurse and very proud at that. And I had come back. I'm a very active member in the Academy of Med-surg Nurses as well. And I had just come back from Washington, D.C. And I was just so excited and just really, rejuvenated with that work and being in DC. And my husband said, so when are you gonna apply for that CEO position? And I just looked at him and I was like, you just think you're so smart. Like, who gave you the right to have so much wisdom and so much smartness? And he's like, I've never seen you so excited about your career and your work, except for when you're doing that. You were like, you're a different person since you left that practice director position. I have seen your sense of purpose die down. And I was like, gosh, why did I marry you? Just kidding. But And so I was like, yeah, whatever. So I kind of ignored him and blew him off a little bit. And then, one of the things that the organization I work for did, were very intentional about doing reflections before meetings. And so I was sitting in a meeting that following Monday, and the reflection was talking about purpose and servanthood. And the question came up, it was, how are you doing God's work in this profession? And what are you going to do to serve? And I just sat there and, because we were virtual, as in a national position. So I was just sat there and stared at the screen. And then all I could hear was my husband's voice in the background. And I was like, this is not how I'm doing God's work. This is not how I was meant to serve in this profession. And so that was when I applied for the CEO position. And not really having any expectations, but also didn't want to have any regrets, because the other question he asked me was, what are you going to do when you go to a TNA meeting and you see someone else up there? Are you going to have regrets? Again, very smart man. So here I am today.
And you're here. Yay.
And September will be a year that I've been in this role. I feel like I have literally hit the ground running, and I haven't stopped running, but I haven't gotten tired yet. And I have a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and I am so humbled to be in a position of this caliber. And I'm really excited about the future of TNA.
And you picked up a few nurses along the way.
I did.
Building the team. There's so much about what you said, Serena, that one resonates certainly, but also is really inspiring to say that there is a purpose for us, and there's a variety of ways that we can serve, whether that is at the bedside, which is such an important role. There's also important roles in leadership, as faculty, in public health, and even through advocacy at this level. So that's one thing I think that nurses automatically assume they're supposed to be on this career path of, step-by-step process. And I certainly felt that for many years and thought, I just got to work my way up the clinical ladder. And I think the reality is I can climb any ladder, but it's not the journey of the ladder. It's where am I going when I get there? Am I going to get there? And when I do get there, is that really where I'm meant to be? So I think there's a lot of what you say that just is resonating. And I think it also says that, demonstrates that we are very diverse. I mean, but even just between you and I mean, our experiences, although some things relate, there are a lot of ways that you can get to where we are today. And I want to open it now and introduce Jamie, Dr. Roney. Tell us a little bit about your nursing background and what led you to TNA, and what thoughts do you have about what Dr. Bumpus and myself have shared so far?
Well, thanks for letting me introduce myself and tell you about my journey. And I feel somewhat that Dr. Bumpus and I have been influenced by a lot of the same people. When I hear her say the name Myrna Armstrong, it brings back some memories of being an Army nurse together with Dr. Armstrong. And we actually rode in the car together to our 2 weeks of active duty in San Antonio one year. And along that ride, I was an associate degree prepared nurse. And I can't count how many times I was told to go back to school to get my BSN. So I feel like the influence in the state of Texas amongst our peers is just so intertwined and so important. And that same support is what I feel not only in the office at Texas Nurses Association with just the three of us, but you feel it on a much larger level. And so my journey started as a combat field medic in 1987 in the Army, and I didn't even know what the difference was between an LVN and an RN. I sometimes feel guilty. I have a guilt for not being that child that always dreamed of being a nurse, because most nurses have always dreamed of being a nurse, and I didn't even know the difference. What was a nurse? And so that that changed my life though in choosing to be a combat field medic, because once I was a medic, the Army said, you really need to go back to school. We want you to become an LVN. And so on active duty, I went back to get my licensed practical nurse, and they don't call it vocational in the military, they call it practical, but I went back to get my LPN. And so it just started this journey of inspiration and just happenstance. And so I am now working on, this is my 30th year starting this month of being a registered nurse. I got my RN in 1994. And like Serena started out as an associate degree nurse from South Plains College. And I worked for several years as an associate degree nurse before I went back to school. I feel like I can relate to different nurses maybe than some of my other team members, mainly because my husband left me in the middle of LVN school with a 9-month-old baby. And so I vowed to not date or go back to school till my kids graduated high school, because I felt like my kids were more important than my profession. So for many, many years, I stayed an associate degree nurse, and I raised those 2 kids. And I feel like you can do anything you want to do. But exactly 20 years after getting my associate degree, I graduated with my master's degree in nursing, and I chose the education track, probably because my mother's an educator. She taught elementary school for years. My grandfather was a professor of Bible at Wayland Baptist University. My grandmother was a teacher. So my family lineages are educators. So I'm pretty sure that's probably why I kind of lean that way. But I found a way to combine my new love for a profession that I didn't always know I was going to be a part of, but wasn't very old when I joined. I was an LVN by the age of 19, so I'm one of those that's been doing it a while. But I also got to combine that with my love for educating others in professional development. And I did go back. I decided once I went to school, I just might as well go straight through. So I did not stop between my bachelor's degree and doctor of nursing practice, which if you've gone back to school yet and you're listening to this, you'll understand why I'm the queen of APA now, because 3 degrees back to back and solid. I can say I learned one thing, and that's APA, and I'll probably forget it by the time they change it enough times, but for now it's drilled into my head. And I can speak from being that nurse that was for 20 years an associate degree prepared nurse. And I feel like my generation of nursing, we were able to advance a lot further than what one would be able to do now with an associate's degree. I just think that we've got a lot of just brilliant younger nurses joining the profession, and they're pushing us to go back to school, and they're pushing us to go further and do more, which is not a bad thing. And so, but I do think it means that education requirements, or where you can get with your degree, is going to just continue that bar raise and raise and raise. Like Serena, I'm very active in other nursing organizations, and I got my CCRN in adult critical care in 1999. And they were the few that allowed an associate degree nurse to become certified. And I think that that gave me a lot of loyalty to AACN, and I was able to volunteer as an ADN. I was able to do so much on the national level as an ADN. And so I think that the first organization that you feel like supports you and helps you grow and accepts you is so important. And it's probably why I wasn't as active in TNA, because it was that early loyalty. And I think this team really wants us to be the ones to be that organization that is there for our nurses transitioning into their career. And we want to be the ones that want to love on you and support you and allow you to be as active as you want to be, go as far as you want to go, and get to wherever that journey leads you. And Laura, you said it best, there are so many avenues and so many directions, but it's which one of those is the one that fulfills you. And I cannot say that I am not so proud of Serena for picking her journey and her husband for pushing her there, because if you asked me again or 20 years from now why I'm part of this team, it's really because of Dr. Bumpus. And I have the honor of saying I have met the last two nurses that led Texas Nurses Association personally and professionally over the many years, but nobody is like Serena. I was tried a new role. I had been in nursing administration for decades, and I had led sepsis work. I had led a lot of Greenbelt work, process improvements, all kinds of high-level things for a large organization. But I decided to go back to my hometown to a small rural hospital to be chief nursing officer, where the same walls that I believe Dr. Bumpus talks about are similar to maybe some of the same walls that I was facing as a nurse who probably knew nursing rights and roles, and that's not what they wanted. They wanted a puppet. And I'm speaking for those that were not nurses, the CEO, the board. And what led me here was I tried to start or initiate peer review policy and put in place peer review process and committee, because we met the requirement by the Board of Nursing and was shut down and told I couldn't do that. And so I should say I called TNA first, but it's not true. I called Pat Yoderwise first, but I called Dr. Yoderwise and I told her my story, and I was asking for advice and mentorship, and she's the most brilliant of all my mentors when it comes to creative thinking. And she's just amazing. And she's like, you need to call TNA. And so when your mentor tells you call TNA, then I call my friend who is an officer at District 18, and Dr. Smith too said, hey, TNA's got a new lawyer that took Jim's place. Didn't have to even look up his name, knew Jack Frazie's his name, and here, let me help you. And she just texts me how to get a hold of our government affairs liaison, who's an amazing guy on our team. And so that whole conversation led to me picking up the phone and calling the practice hotline at Texas Nurses Association. And it's how that call ended up would have made all the difference in the world on how I felt about this organization, because I am not the one that ever calls. And I picked up the phone for the first time in 30 years and called this organization. And Dr. Bumpus, I mean, just truly her passion for professional nursing and her passion for whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your role, and supporting you is just incredible. I mean, to have the CEO of Texas Nurses Association take the time to set up a Zoom call with me made me feel very special. And then, yay, she said, let me give your information to Jack. And so Jack was able to call me back. And so I was able to connect lots of dots that started with, you know, my local nurses that are really, you know, involved in our organization. And it took me to two incredible members of the team here at Texas Nurses Association. And I say that because, you know, in the conversation, Serena said, well, I was the director of nursing practice and I took this role. And she didn't tell me there's a job opening, but she did indirectly, but she didn't know that's what I heard. And I'm like, dang, if this is what that team is like, I want to be a part of that group. I want to be next to somebody that can support a nurse the way I just got supported. And so that is really what led me to Texas Nurses Association. As far as my background, I feel like I've always worn 3 hats, because as a single mom, I always worked 4 jobs. If it wasn't my Army Reserve hat, which I did spend from 1987 straight through 2010 in the Army Reserves. I've had 3 deployments. One as a medic, one as a licensed vocational nurse, and one as a registered nurse. I was actually in Heidelberg, Germany on 9/11 when the World Trade Center was attacked on active duty there. And so I feel like that's like always been a parallel journey of mine together with my civilian other jobs that I have done over the years, but primarily professional development mentoring. I've been a clinical educator at both big hospitals in Lubbock, Texas. I was the educator for the cardiac cath lab at University Medical Center. I was the educator for the cardiac ICU. And Lakeside ICU, I was over all of the unit secretaries. I'd been over the monitor techs there at Covenant Health in Lubbock. And if anybody ever thought I would not get out of West Texas, I think that the only person that could have pulled me out, or organization, I should say, that could have magnetized and drawn me out of my home space is Texas Nurses Association. Nobody that knew me would have dreamed I'd ever move to Austin, Texas. But I think that speaks to how supported I felt and how much respect and inspiration that first phone call to Serena made on me, and that I'm here and part of the team now. So anyway, I hope that answers your question, Laura.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely does. I think as you might be able to tell, I think we are big Serena fans. I think that says a lot. So, Serena, there's 3 of us nurses on the team, and, the positions of professional development and director of practice, those have been intertwined and separated, and that has evolved over the years. So, how do you see all 3 of our roles working together to achieve our strategic goals as an organization?
Just like the profession is in need of and in the middle of great transformational change, the organization, TNA, the organization has to evolve with that as well. And when I was in that role, it was combined. I was the director of practice and nursing professional development. And when you think about what people are looking for as far as the value of being in a professional organization and what they want to get out of it, for some, that advocacy piece is really important. Many nurses realize that advocacy is important, and many don't know that yet. That's our job to educate them on the importance of that too, right? But when you think about how we need to grow this organization, how we need to meet people where they're at, and get out there and really talk to nurses and engage with them in a way that the organization either has not engaged with them or has not engaged in a long time. It was really important to me that we separate that out. Education is critical in the education that we can provide to nurses in Texas is really important. And education in and of itself is a beast. And it's hard to be the director of practice and facilitate and secure content experts to help deliver education. So that was really what led me to, I guess, probably one of my first big decisions in this role is to, how am I going to ensure that if I do keep the position as one, how am I going to make sure this person is successful in balancing out the practice and the education? But really, it was after we finished our strategic planning with the board that I was like, okay, no, there's a lot of work ahead, and I need to divide these 2 positions out into one. That is, to Jamie's point earlier, having that practice person available to be that point of contact for nurses who are struggling with practice related decisions or experiences, you need that dedicated person to do that. And then same with education, Jamie is is the one who's going out and seeking out those people who are doing really good things that we can showcase, and help other organizations who may be struggling with how to support nurses and how to transform their work environments. There are organizations in our state who are doing a really good job at that. And so we need to showcase them. So that was really kind of what led me to separate that workout. One, just from my own lived experience doing both. And two, knowing that we have a lot of really good work ahead of us, and it's important that we have dedicated people to help move it along.
Yeah, I think it's so great that one, we have a full team and we come from just varied backgrounds, but it's so great that we all have very similar passions and a love for our profession and a love for the nurses that we serve. And thinking about some of those big goals and big ideas, I think maybe we should talk a little bit about, what's coming and what's coming for TNA and what do we look to accomplish. So, what does that look like? Either one of you, to Jamie or Serena, what are we going to do this year? What are we excited about?
Well, I just finished combing through that strategic plan as I now start to create a dashboard of things to share with the board and how we're moving our progress forward. And, a big opportunity and I think a large body of work that will take the whole team. But obviously there will be one member of our team, because we are only a small subset of the team that is TNA, right? And so when you think about membership of our organization, there are just over 500,000 nurses here in the state of Texas, and only 16,000 of them are members of TNA. And when you look at the literature and you look at the research, the sad thing is that our profession is not very good at engaging. We have not set that as a standard to be a member of a professional organization in our profession. And so less than 7% of the profession as a whole are members of a professional organization. And so we have to change that. When you look at our physician colleagues, 98% of physicians are members of not only their governing body, which, the equivalent of TNA would be the Texas Medical Association for physicians, right? Or the AMA, the American Medical Association, is the equivalent of ANA. So not only are they members of that governing body that helps really set the standards of practice, and the laws, actually, I should say, who advocate for the laws to allow physicians to practice in the state of Texas, but they're also members of their specialty organizations as well. That is something that is communicated and ingrained in our physician colleagues early on in medical school. We have stopped doing that as nurses. And so we have to get that back. And that is why when you look at the demographics of our membership, the average age is around 40 years old. And so we are missing a huge population of nurses who we need to understand what they want from their professional organization. And so looking at that value proposition and doing some segmentation work around, how we can engage that population of nurses is a really large body of work that we will undertake over the course of the next year, because we have a goal to increase our membership by 5% year over year for the next 5 years. My goal is 30,000 nurses by 2030 in this organization. So that's going to take a lot of just reevaluation of what we offer nurses as a whole. In addition, that advocacy piece is really important as well, in educating nurses on the importance of not only do you advocate for your patients, but you have to advocate for yourselves too. And that advocacy needs to be productive. And what better organization to help not only educate nurses on what productive advocacy looks like and feels like than TNA. And that starts with getting in front of students in schools of nursing. It starts with the road shows that we've been doing and getting out in front of nurses and their communities. And so we will continue to do that work this year, and it will be full speed ahead. So those are just two really big bodies of work. There is a whole list of things that we'll be working on, but we could be here all day talking about that.
I mean, as much as I would love to, I'm more excited to be like, let's get on the bus and start driving. So
Right, exactly.
I think we're all very excited to go on this journey for our membership. And, this is the call to all those listening to say, if you are a member, bring a friend. If you're not a member, give us a call. We are truly, all three of us as nurses are dedicated to serving you. And I think that's something that is to be said, especially because we don't have those pressures behind us of an organization that, we can't speak to what our voice is. We have the ability at TNA as nurses serving in these roles to help others find their voice. And so that's what I'm very much looking forward to in the next year, in the next 5 years, and with this nursing team. So I can't say it enough. Let's go. Let's do it. Well, I just want to thank both of you so much for joining me today so that we can tell the world about our new and newly formed team. And I want to give everybody a chance before we sign off. Is there one last thing that you want to share, anything that you want to say to those listening today?
I just want to say, when I just heard Serena talk again, it's why I'm here. I'm like, if that doesn't inspire you guys to get on the bus and drive with Laura to wherever we're going, and we're following Serena's map to get there, then I don't know what else can get you here, because this is a group of big thinkers with big ideas, and they're not just going to put an idea on paper and not try to make it happen. So to just a second, what both of them have said is please, if you even want to just talk to us, maybe you aren't ready to join today, but you just want to talk to us and get a feel for us as people, call one of us. That's what we're here for, because we are here to serve, and servitude is our place. And when we're not busy trying to move the wheels and spin and make change happen, we are truly serving nurses across the state of Texas. So thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Serena, any last words?
I would just say, to thank you, Jamie, for your kind words. And I have a lot of energy, a lot. And and I'm sure sometimes it's exhausting to my team, and that's okay. I recognize it, I own it, and I'm okay with that. But there's a reason why I stepped away from hospital administration and from leadership in that capacity. And it's because I can carry the nurse's voice forward. I understand the issues. I have been fighting to address these issues for many, many years. And I want to carry your voice forward. And there are many amazing nurse leaders out there who I think feel the same, like they're frustrated and they're tired of hitting a brick wall, but they're going to continue to move after it. But that's also where they can leverage us, TNA, to help address some of the struggles, either through legislation or other collaboratives that we can help support them without them fearing for just getting smacked in the face. So I am excited about this work. I am ready to take nursing in Texas to a whole new level. So I hope you all will get on the bus and join me. It's going to be a really fun ride. Some days it'll be bumpy, but hopefully most of the time it will be smooth. And we're going to do really great things here in Texas.
Well, thank you both again for just being on the team. And That was Dr. Serena Bumpus, our CEO of TNA, and Dr. Jamie Roney Hernandez, our Director of Nursing Professional Development. I'm Laura Kinchlow, and I want to thank you for listening. This has been the Texas Nurse Podcast.
This is the doctor's name.